What is the most disturbing thing to know? Often, burned bodies are found in the same stance, known as the boxer pose due to muscles contracting from heat. It's an incredibly disturbing looking thing. I first heard about it from my grandfather that fought in Burma. During the war he was present at a Burmese funeral in which the cadaver was burnt on a pyre. Just as the flames began to singe the corpse, it sat up straight. The Burmese, of course, got a good laugh out of the British soldiers collectively shitting themselves, as contractions due to heat during cremation is apparently rather common. Doesn't make it any less creepy. This is why when we Hindus creamed our dead we pile logs on top of them. Grandpa ain't sitting up straight with 100 kilos of deadwood on him. Cyanide poisoning is an incredibly painful way to die. Cyanide was what Jonestown consumed for mass suicide. Parents were instructed to give it to their children and convinced the crying was just fear. Edit. For those asking about how cyanide, https://emergency cdc gov/agent/cyanide/basics/facts asp works. If memory serves from when I first read this and listened to the audio recordings, it feels like a massive heart attack. It may not have taken too much time, but any time greater than instant is too long to suffer before death. I'm reminded of the fact that Jim Jones had someone shoot him in the head. Coward couldn't drink the poison he forced those people and their babies to take, and couldn't even pull the trigger himself. Sarin gas is one of the worst ways to kill another human being, and we have seen multiple instances where it has been used on innocent people. Whether relaxed or contracting, your muscles need certain signals in order to function. When you flex a muscle, a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine floods the muscle cells, telling them to contract. Your brain eventually tells the muscles to stop contracting, and so that acetylcholine has to be removed. This is done with acetylcholinesterase, an enzyme which breaks it down and allows your muscles to relax. This happens for every movement of every muscle in your body, whether you're flexing your bicep or blinking every beat of your heart. Sarin kills because it bonds with acetylcholinesterase, completely changing its structure and rendering the enzyme useless. This means your muscles never relax. They flex harder and harder and harder. Your entire body can cramp, your pupils, everything. The burning gets worse and worse and the pain is unbearable. If enough of it enters the bloodstream, usually via skin, it will lock up your diaphragm and you will asphyxiate. It kills quickly, but I struggle to imagine too many things that would be worse than dying from cramps in muscles you didn't even realize existed. It's not the worst weapon humans have at their disposal. As if you survive a sarin attack, you're likely to make a full recovery, as it doesn't scar lung tissue like other chemical weapons. That being said, it's still classified as a weapon of mass destruction and is supposed to be banned. Adding the wiki, https://en wikipedia.org/wiki/sarin, for sarin for anyone interested. Pelicans are some of the most demonic birds in existence, if not some of the most demonic creatures. Pelicans will go into other birds' nests, shove the parents out of the nest. They will then swallow babies whole, fly back to their own nests, and regurgitate the still half-alive, partially digested babies to their own babies for them to consume. Some pelicans are literally raised on the partially digested, living flesh of other baby birds. During World War II, Japan bombed China with fleas infected with the bubonic plague. People seem to really forget about Japan's atrocities during WW2. It was Nazi-level shit. If you try to grab the brain in its natural state, it will fall apart. When you see scientists pick up the brain, they have used chemicals to harden it. Chris Farley's last words were, "Don't leave me." He said it the prostitute he was with, who then stole his watch and took a picture of him dead/dying. 1/3 of all people who break their hip die within the year. So please tape pillows to your elderly relatives. One aspect of foster care. Some people will take their child to a doctor. Child gets diagnosed with cancer. Child goes to first appointment. Kid gets wheeled back for treatment. Parents then leave, go home, pack and disappear. The kid is in the treatment waiting room. Waiting for parents that will never ever come. Sick and facing death alone. It doesn't happen a lot, but enough to have processes in place. The worst is when they are like 4, although a 7-year-old was also rough. Edit whoa. Lots of comments, so I'll try and go through some also. It's biological parents that abandon them at the hospital. But foster parents do too. Especially if the first foster parents are relatives that were strongly asked to foster. The CPR dummy face template is based on a dead 16-year-old girl's face. Her body was pulled from the River Seine in the 1880s and her cause of death and identity were never discovered. A mortician was so entranced by her peaceful expression that he made a plaster mask of her, which became the face of CPR dummies and health training equipment. So hundreds of millions of people have kissed the face of an anonymous dead girl in the last 150 years. That if you have ALS, you're more than likely going to suffocate to death. My mom used to work for this elder gentleman who suffered from ALS. One day she gets a call that he's passed away in his apartment. From what she told me, she walked in and his eyes were wide open and his mouth was open, permanently left gasping for air. ALS is a neurodegenerative disease that causes people to lose control over their nerves over time to the point of near vegetative state. Most people don't last very long once diagnosed because they lose the ability to expand their chest to breathe and pretty much choke to death. That sadder thing about it that you could be fully awake when this happens and have no way of stopping it. That there are parents out there that willfully sell their children into sex slavery or force them into prostitution. By the time you show the symptoms of rabies, it's already too late. It can also be dormant for a year before you show those symptoms. The Nutty Putty Cave accident. Google for full disturbing details / a map of the cave, but basically a guy got stuck caving in a very narrow unmapped tunnel. Upside down. They could not get him out. But almost did. One of the rescuers made eye contact with him apparently, but then their pulley system broke and he fell further down. Unfortunately he ended up dying of cardiac arrest from being upside down for so long, and they couldn't get him out / never retrieved the body because it was too dangerous for rescuers. Truly so disturbing. I've thought about it probably once a week since I found out about it a few months ago. Edit, even more disturbing now that someone gave this a wholesome award. I've watched both my parents die in hospice. And unlike what you've seen and heard about, it is not always peaceful. Edit to add, while the hospice staff were wonderful. The positive part of hospice is that everyone who wants to gets to say goodbye. Edit number 2, so many of you are sharing heart-wrenching stories of your loved ones passing. I am just so sorry for your losses and hope that you find comfort and healing in knowing that you are not alone. One of Mayhem's band members committed suicide. When he was found by his bandmate, pictures were taken and it became the new album cover. The photographer was subsequently murdered by Varg Vikernes, who masterminded church burnings. Hotels rarely clean their ice machines. If an elephant's mate dies, then they can die from broken heart syndrome. The value of a human body. There is value to the human body as a commodity. And different parts of our body are worth different amounts while corneas are small. They fetch a large price, £15. 000. Or about $22. 450. Whereas our skeleton garners significantly less, £5. 000. About $7. 483. The price also depends on whether the body part is sold for specimen use, transplants, or on the black market. The mineral value of our body is like $3 bucks. The liver can be ruptured in one punch. Liver is the second most fragile organ in the human body. Edit, well fuck, lots of people seem interested. Do with this knowledge as you wish. Edit 2, I'm using fragile to mean susceptibility to damage, not sensitivity. Llama spit is actually projectile vomit. One of the scariest and most disturbing thing I've watched in the internet is that one guy's slow descent to insanity because its brain lost its ability to sleep. He vlogged regularly until he died. That's one of the most disturbing things I know, that anyone, including myself, can have their last sleep without knowing it. Edit, Ricard Syagin's channel, https://www. YouTube. com/channel/UC2B8ZEBYWC5NZW4JJ2KZ9A/videos, for those who asked. Edit 2, TL, DW, the guy had a UTI. He didn't have insurance, so he took an antibiotic. After 2 weeks, he lost his ability to sleep because of the side effect of that antibiotic. Necrophilia in wars and battlefields. It is known that at the time of violent death, the victim suffers from spasms of the anal sphincter. Many potential necrophiles have sought to take advantage of this fact by engaging in anal intercourse with dying soldiers on a battlefield. Soldiers during the Russo-Turkish War of 1877–1878 and Moroccan campaigns of 1919–1926 were violated in this way on the battlefield. 24. 45. The practice has been termed warm necrophilia, although the term is more suitably applied elsewhere. Please see Chapter 3. Classification. The Chinese are known to engage in sexual intercourse with geese and to kill them intentionally at the point of ejaculation for similar reasons. 1. During the infamous Nanjing Massacre, often referred to as E-rape of Nanking, in 1937, Japanese soldiers raped an estimated 80,000 Chinese women. Since the Japanese army had officially outlawed the rape of enemy women, Japanese soldiers found it convenient to murder Chinese women after raping them. In many cases, Chinese men were forced to commit acts of necrophilia, forced necrophilia, on the murdered women. 48. At least one Chinese man was murdered because he refused to commit necrophilia with the corpse of a woman in the snow. 49. Marilyn Monroe's case, 1962, it has been alleged that necrophilia was committed on Marilyn Monroe's dead body. 2. After she died on August 5, 1962. 53. Omanis Noguchi, who performed Monroe's autopsy, found 8 mg of chloral hydrate in her blood and 13 mg of pentobarbital, Nembutal, in her liver tissue. On this basis the cause of death was given as suicidal overdose of barbiturates. However, Noguchi also noted a fresh bruise spanning Monroe's lower back and hip which might have indicated violence, but this was ignored. 53. Deputy Coroner Lionel Grandison signed the death certificate under protest and later resigned his position. In 1978 he disputed the suicide diagnosis, claiming his signature was forced. He also described numerous bruises on Monroe's corpse that were not listed in Noguchi's report, suggesting a violent struggle prior to death. He claimed that one or more necrophiles employed at the county morgue had violated Monroe's corpse before it was released for burial. 53. Source, Necrophilia, Forensic and Medical Legal Aspect. Full book here, https://oavcrime.com. br/downloads/necrophilia. PDF. I work as an anesthesiologist. I've put people to sleep in an emergency situation knowing that they will almost certainly not survive the surgery. These are generally situations where without surgery the patient will not survive, but even with surgery the chances of survival are still small. In most of these instances the patients are too obtunded or aren't conscious enough to be aware of the gravity of their situation, but in a number of instances the patients have been conscious, talking although clearly anxious. I try to reassure and tell the person that we won't leave their side, that we will take care of them and that they will be fine. It kind of fucks me up a bit to say this to someone, but I always include the last part because I just don't see the point in telling them the truth. I had one guy tell me he felt like he wasn't going to make it. I told him he would make it but knew he wasn't going to. I put him to sleep knowing that the last human face he would see before he died was mine as he stared up at me as I held an oxygen mask over his mouth and nose. I'd consider myself quite a resilient person, but knowing this stuff is a bit of a load to carry around. My late wife went through so many surgeries while dealing with cancer, over a period of 3 years. It was down to a routine eventually where we would basically high-five before she went under. The last time, she didn't come back out. But your job. Every time. I appreciated you. Thank you for what you do. I know it's a ton to handle.